Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of YouTube. I want to talk to you here just briefly here for a moment about the job. Now, understand this. There are people who will hide behind their jobs and use their jobs as an excuse to perpetuate injustices upon others. I myself personally, I can't do that. You have to understand, we live in a system that if somebody has power over you, the potential of abuse is always there, simply because they have power over you to abuse you. And if it's part of the job, then they will do it. Now, that's letting you know that these people are definitely people of low morals and low character. As a matter of fact, these people cannot be trusted, and they would even sell out their own mothers if necessary, because it's the job. And so we're watching our system collapse right around us. We're watching the immorality continue to gain steam and strength throughout these days, months, and years. We're watching literally the decline of our society right before our very eyes. And then the morals, the values, they're all eroding. And most of them are eroding simply because, now you think about this for a moment. If it's the job, most people will actually hide behind the label and title of the job in order to do wrong, even though they know in their conscience that it's not the right thing to do. So our system trains people to separate what they personally believe from the job, and they go home, and most of them have become so callous that it doesn't even trouble them or bother them, that they just have got finished abusing someone. Well, I'm not wired that way. I can't take a job to where I'm going to abuse someone, especially if I know it's going to take away their liberties, their freedoms, and their rights. Well, most people don't have a conscience. They can do it up on the drop of a hat, and it's totally irrelevant to you, to them, about what you think. They could care less. And that's the problem that we're having today. Now, I have to answer the other part of the question, because I get a lot of people asking me a bunch of questions here. Then we have, the religious front. There's basically, societies are built on 4 fronts, the social, political, the economic, and the religious fronts. And the reason why there's so much disagreements and there's so many discord amongst the religions of the world is because of the different viewpoints and perspectives. For instance, that's the Holy Bible. That's the best translation of the scriptures that we have available to us today. Are there other resources? Sure it is. The problem is how you culturally define and what perspective you come from. So if you come from an institution that teaches a certain way based on their culture, no matter what that book says, they'll take whole passages out of that book and totally twist it, warp it, and corrupt it to fit their culture. That's like America. America actually views this book from a Western perspective or a Western viewpoint. And if you go back into my archives of my videos, you see I talk like this all the time. But that's a Eastern book. And understand this. Since it's an Eastern book, it has to be understood from an Eastern perspective and not a Western perspective. So that's the biggest mistake, and that's the biggest fault that there is. A lot of people, they go to my, various websites, and they'll see pictures of our congregations. And the first thing they'll do, because they are influenced by a Western culture, a Western, listen to me very close, Greco-Roman culture. Now, what I'm saying is, that means America has its roots and it is built upon a Greco-Roman culture. And of course, if you watch this Greco-Roman culture, history for this culture only goes back as far as Rome. They never talk about Egypt. They never talk about the historical truth coming from a Hebraic perspective. So you need proper understanding in order to approach this Bible, because if you approach it from an Western viewpoint, you're going to really, truly mess up everything. That's the reason why we have differences of opinions today. And so it depends on how you view this thing and what perspective you're viewing it from. So today we'll get people who that would go to our website and they will look at our dress and they will say, well, why y'all dressed like that? Now the question is, why are you asking questions without doing your due diligence or out doing research? Because see, people already come from the viewpoint and the mindset that they are correct in their belief and their behavior without exploring why people are doing certain things. So we become a culture where we just ask questions. And as soon as someone gives us an answer and it does not suit us the way that we think it ought to be answered, then by our own personal perspective and viewpoint, because we're defining Yah on our own terms, then, you know, the answer can't be right, but that could be nothing further from the truth. But the book is is an Eastern book. And since it's an Eastern book, we come from an Eastern viewpoint, Eastern perspective, because, you know, Pastor Val is I'm an Israelite. You understand that? So therefore I come from that perspective. You know, our sisters there's more to our sisters than the size of their breasts and the size of their behinds. There's more to our sisters than the shape of their bodies, and them trying to expose and be as lewd as possible in order to be accepted by society. Number one, we're not trying to be accepted by society because we are in exile. We're strangers and we're pilgrims. We're in a foreign land. We're just passing through. And then after this, we go to the kingdom where we're going to rule and reign forever. That's just the truth according to that book. Now, you may come from an Eastern, you may come from a Western perspective and not understand my viewpoint. And that just seems to be the problem. And, you know, the real trouble is that when you get a bunch of people that will not do no due diligence or research whatsoever at all, I call it literally just chaotic ignorance. And it's a bizarre behavior. It's literally a bizarre behavior because, you know, people are dying because they don't have knowledge. I mean, you think about it. I'll go back to my point earlier that I made. If somebody has power over you and if you don't know what they know, they will abuse you because that's just what you call an unregenerated human nature. Because if it has to do with their family eating and your family starving, they're going to take their family eating. And if that means to perpetuate injustices upon you, if that means to do you wrong, then they will do it just in order to eat. Now, I'm not wired that way. The Most High did not make me that way. As a matter of fact, he has made me a servant to all. So I cannot go around just doing people wrong and then go to bed at night with a good conscience. I just can't do it. He just did not make me that way. So, you know, here in America, we view everything from an abstract viewpoint. You know, if you think it, if you feel it, you believe it, then it has to be right. But that book doesn't do like that. That book defines things from a concrete viewpoint. I mean, it has substance to it. And so you have to have substance. And in order to have substance, you have to define and understand what that book says. And I know I'm already speaking over some people's head, but that's the reason why we have so many diversities when it comes to opinions, ideologies, theologies, and so-called religions today, is because people will not put things in proper order and perspective and view things for what it really truly is. Let's look at it here on the political front. And let's just say Constitution, okay? If you know anything about the history of this country, you know that there's really no such thing as a country as the United States of America. As a matter of fact, it is the corporation, it is the United States Corporation of America. And when you understand that perspective and viewpoint, now you know the reason why when you go into a court system that the Constitution does not matter. And they will hold you in contempt of court if you ever try to recite or ever try to bring up anything that has to do with the Constitution. I mean, after all, the President Barack Hussein Obama is allegedly supposed to be a constitutionalist lawyer. But yet and still, he just got finished signing into a bunch of terrorist bills against the patriots of this country or the citizens of this country. And he just got finished signing the National Defense Authorization Act into law. Now, how in the world can you do something like that if you are operating after the Constitution? Well, the Constitution is not in effect here in this country because the United States of America is a business. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to continue to keep dying and being destroyed because you don't have knowledge. And of course, I know that knowledge is painful and it's just too much for most of us to change our minds. So, but if you don't have knowledge, you will not know how to function in a so-called civilized, which we know is very uncivilized society. So you have to know who you are. You really truly need to know who you are. And you really truly need to spend the time, cut that damn TV off and pick up a book and learn something and do something that was, looked upon as an honorable person and an honorable man, honorable woman years ago, which is read. Get some independent thinking, develop it. Use self-autonomy. Learn how to govern yourself, and that is a learned behavior. So you get people sitting up here just decide to just flat out make me their enemy. I understand why they do that. Believe me, I understand. That's why you don't see me fighting against them too much. Because unless I can get my enemies face to face in an open dialogue, it's really totally irrelevant to sit behind a computer, type on a keyboard, and waste 30 minutes to an hour a day feuding with someone, no telling who they are, where they are, and no telling what their mindset is or what perspective they're coming from. I mean, that is just, that in itself is a bizarre behavior. I don't have time for that. I'm in the business of strengthening, and I did say business because that is my business, of strengthening people, to help enhance them, to give them the knowledge of truth, so that they do not perish. So I understand that I'm in a land that has a form of being what you call godliness, a form of righteousness. But when you really truly look at it for what it really truly is, the whole entire thing is built on, and it's on a lie. The whole thing is. It's literally built on lies. And people have gotten to the point now that the lie has become the truth, and the truth is now the lie. And then usually people are not going to wake up until their ability to resist is totally taken away from them. When you read that book right there, you'll see the history of two different types of people, of Israelites. You'll see those who submitted to the system and they were killed by the system and they were destroyed. And then you see those who fought against the system, whether they lived or whether they died. Either way it went, we're all eventually going to pass on one day or another either way, anyway. But you know what? From what I can ascertain from my studies is that both were accepted of the Most High. It's just that some people, they choose to take a passive angle and perspective towards stuff, and some of us choose to take a very active perspective and an angle towards things. I mean, after all, it's your life, and so you need to be informed about your actions. So I started this all by saying that there's just certain things that my heart would just simply not allow me to do in the name of a job. Even when I was in the military, if you would have came up and told me that I would have to actually patrol the streets of America, and there would be the potential that I would have to fire and, if necessary, kill another American, I'd have flat out told you to go to hell, because I wouldn't do it. And I hope that that's the sentiments of a lot of veterans. But the majority of people that come in, you look at our school system, Tennessee and Kentucky. I'm going to show you the mindset of what's going on now. Tennessee and Kentucky has just now put forth some laws. Whether it passed or not, I'm not sure. But what they want to do is they want to eradicate all memories of the historical facts of slavery out of the history books in Tennessee and Kentucky. Now, do you know what that's going to do when you take history away from the people? If they end up repeating the same mistakes again, if the system ends up doing the same things again, then the people won't have any idea of how to respond or react. They won't have any idea what's taking place, because, history has this uncanny ability to repeat itself. And it does it over and over and over again. When you look at America today, we are following the exact same policies as the ancient Greco-Roman Empire. I mean, to the T. I mean, almost just literally to the T. Most people can't understand that because they refuse to put knowledge in their minds. So therefore, they don't know how to respond and react. And I say it over and over again. If the people up there, hey, you have a right to protest. But if you knew what I knew, you wouldn't be out there on those streets protesting. Because when you understand history, the way that history plays out, history is a literal, I'm talking about a literal picture screen to the future. And if you understand history, it's easy for you to see how human beings are going to respond and react. It tells you how governments respond and how they're going to react. Remember, there's nothing new under the sun whatsoever at all. And so I believe in empowering people through knowledge. I really, truly do. And you need it because we are dying because of a lack of it. And you're going to continue to keep on dying. And not only you're going to die, but all the people that's going to appertain to you. And now, hey, don't get me wrong. I don't fear death. We all going to have to die one day or the other. Hey, that's just a fact of life. Some of us would die young. Some of us would die old. That's just the truth. The deal is how you die. Are you going to die unjust or just? As for me and my house, it's about dying just. Because, you see, Pastor Dow ain't going into no slavery. Because I understand the history of slavery. And Pastor Dow will never be enslaved to any man or any system on this earth. Because like the so-called Jews say, never again with me. It won't happen. It won't happen because if necessary for standing up what is right, I have no compunction, no problem going to the grave. I have no problem at all. So they can't use the fear of death or the fear of incarceration to change my mind or change my course. That's just the way it is. That's me because I have understanding about history. So I hope that some way, somehow, that I've been able to say something here this morning to put a defibrillator on your mind, to try to get you to understand what order and perspective is, and to try to at least tap into your conscious and your subconscious to do something that is quickly eroding in our society, and that is the ability to think. I want you to use the ability to think. You don't hear my words. Then you make a decision based on the information that is presented. But before you go out and rationally discard anything that I said because it just does not fit your personal perspective, how about spend the painstaking time and doing your due diligence and do some research and find out and see? Because whenever my mouth is open, you're hearing my heart. And whenever anyone opens their mouth, you're hearing their heart. You'll know if they're a truther or they're a deceiver, they're a liar, or they're a person of moral and ethics. You can tell an honorable man and an honorable woman. A dishonorable man and a dishonorable woman hates an honorable man and an honorable woman. So let me go back over here just for a second. When you see our sisters and our brothers dressed the way they dress, it's because we come from a biblical Eastern perspective. We don't come from a Greco-Roman perspective to where it's accepted in this society for a woman to enhance her breasts and put implants all over her body. And I'll say what J. Smith IV said. He said, can you imagine hundreds of years from now when they're excavating graves and stuff and they see all these bodies, they're going to wonder, what is all this stuff that is in these bodies? What is going on? I mean, they're going to like, what in the world? What kind of mindset were these people in? Now, our women are very intelligent. As a matter of fact, the majority of women who actually attend the congregation and follow the ministry of the Straightway Truth, probably well over 70% of them have college degrees. And the men own businesses or either have had college degrees. We have a few people that are just flat out laborers. That's just the truth. But they are a very intelligent people. And I'm going to tell you right now, and it makes no difference to me if you get mad and upset or not, but I will tell you this. People who listen to me are people who have the spirit of truth. And it's just the truth. And they understand and they see what's going on. And that's the truth. and that's the truth, straightway.